A lot of belief and a lot of just enjoying every extra day, because we were counting out a long time ago, and we're still here playing hockey in June and have the opportunity. We are going back to Edmonton for Game 6, and there's a lot to smile about.
I love playing in the playoffs. I love playing with this group, and it's not possible without everybody. You know, as Hai's alluded to. So it's been a fun ride. We're glad it's going to go one more day, but that's all we've earned here is another day, another flight, and we'll be ready to go in Edmonton on Friday.
Paul, if you go by home ice, it's supposed to be 3-2. I know it's not what you wanted, but it's supposed to be 3-2. Is that going to be somewhat, I don't know, definitely not comfort, but yeah, it's supposed to be hard. I mean,
I'm not pumping tires. I'm not rubbing backs. I don't think we need that at all. Everybody feels probably exactly the way I do right now. So I'm not feeling deflated. Neither's the hockey team. They're not feeling deflated. A little grumpy.
And again, the Oilers, they are on the verge of making some more history, because here's the teams that have forced a Game 6 in a Stanley Cup Final after trailing 3-0. 2012 Devils, they lost in 6. Going back to 1945, the Red Wings, they lost in 7. And then the Maple Leafs, 1942, they won in 7. What will the result be for the Oilers? I don't know, but we will be there for Game 6 because they have delivered the goods and more for this series. Joining us now, Alan May and Pete Blackburn. Guys, we were all pretty close to writing this Oilers team off 2 games ago when the Panthers took a 3-0 series lead. Now they are the ones clawing back against the Cats. Pete, just how fun did you have? How much fun did you have watching the last few minutes of a game where it looked like the Panthers want to take this to OT, but the Oilers and Connor McDavid said, we want some more hockey games to play?
My heart's still racing. This has been a roller coaster series, and that was a roller coaster game in terms of the way that it kind of flipped on its head at the midway point. Obviously, the Oilers jumped out early. Big special teams performance once again from Edmonton. But, man, they ultimately survived that game. They survived that game, and that final sequence with the McDavid empty netter was a kind of a perfect summation of the game, in that you kind of had a signature game from Matthew Tkachuk, but it didn't really matter because Connor McDavid had his signature game, and it was just that much better. And the Oilers are alive. And again, I think they survived that game given the way that they played over the last 30 minutes or so. But hey, survive and advance. They're going back to Edmonton. And if the seed of doubt wasn't already planted, it is now planted and watered based off of the way that these last 2 games have gotten. And I think it's a brand new series at this point, especially going back to Edmonton. And when you look at some of the trends in this series, and I think that we had our best game maybe of the postseason, but certainly of the series. And it feels like this series has new life.
You know, when I look at everything about this game, it was just absolutely incredible that the Oilers were able to score first. And a guy that struggled through the first 55 games of the year without a goal, Connor Brown, has been just an absolute miracle the last couple of games. The speed that he's been playing the game with, the clutch goals and points that he's been getting, and having players down your lineup start to add is what really, we're going to talk about McDavid and how great he was getting to 4 points tonight. But you have to have the other guys contribute if you want to continue to survive. And Connor Brown just got Edmonton. He gave them confidence. He gave them hope. He gave them energy by scoring that first goal, and shorthanded at that. So you take that, you pucker up the Panthers a little bit. You kind of tighten up their fans. You take some of that, you know, that exuberance in the building, and you pull it down, you push it down, and the Oilers are able to come back. So as this game went on, we saw them take over the first period. In the second period, I felt they went back to some of their bad habits that I didn't like in the first 3 games. In the third period, it was courage all the way around. I loved the effort from both teams in the third period. I thought the board play by the Panthers was maybe the best I've ever seen. But I thought the commitment to block shots, to get the puck out of the zone, how hard Janmark tried to fight off for Hagee to score that empty net goal, and then Tkachuk going back, which would have been one of the greatest replays of all time, one of the greatest highlights of all time, had he not only saved that, but the Panthers go down the ice and score. So there were a lot of great, just incredible touch points of highlights in this game. And I just thought both teams played with a ton of heart and a ton of emotion.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to see at this stage of the postseason. And no matter what happens, we will be talking about this game for decades upon decades. Now, Pete, I do want to ask you, what do you think the Oilers are doing differently in these past 2 games specifically?
Well, I mean, I agree with Alan in that some of their older bad habits started to show up in the second half of this game. But like he mentioned as well, they're getting contributions not only from Connor McDavid, who had a dominant game, but also up and down their lineup on special teams. And that's some of the stuff that wasn't happening for them earlier in this series, where a few mistakes in a game made the difference and pointed it in Florida's direction. Now they're playing and getting enough from top to bottom in different areas. And I thought it was a really good game from Stu Skinner as well, that you're able to survive some of those mistakes that you do make over the course of a 60-minute game that don't ultimately kill you. And so they're not really relying on super razor thin margins and, you know, relying on themselves to play a perfect 60-minute game in order to win. And, you know, honestly, for Edmonton, that's a really good thing, because they're not going to play a perfect 60-minute game most nights. But where they can make up for that is from that high-end talent and from, you know, the separating factor between having Connor McDavid and not having Connor McDavid, because you can't really match him a lot of the time. So, you know, you can honestly say that Connor McDavid was the difference in this game, but you also have to factor in the things that happened around him. And the Oilers are starting to get some of that stuff now, and that's also making a difference.
And I'm a lot with Pete in this game, as I actually felt that Stuart Skinner might have stole a game in this one. And his play was exceptional. McDavid was just, you know, I always hate to say McDavid was McDavid. McDavid was superhuman tonight. And, you know, at the times that he needed to push the puck forward. But I thought those bad habits of the Oilers, as they crept into the game really late in the first period, they started going to the hash marks inside the offensive zone on the entries and turning back up the wall. They were falling over, losing the pucks, turning it over, losing possession. When they were successful, what they were doing, they were pushing the puck forward. They were getting it to the crease. When they started to turn back and then get behind the goal line, and instead of doing the net jams like we see Matthew Tkachuk do all the time, Sam Bennett, you know, Barkov, they go behind the net and they try to slam it in on the near post. The Oilers refused to do that in the second period when they had opportunity. So that allowed the Panthers to gain some momentum, to score some goals and tighten up the Oilers a little bit. But once again, in the third period, it was kind of the playbook out the window, and it just became about, you know, blood and guts and second and third efforts to score goals for the Panthers to will their way to the front of the net. And then on the other hand, the Oilers doing the same thing to get out of the zone, to block the shots. So this is the kind of game that you want to be in the finals. I'm one that hates a 4-game sweep in the finals. I do not like them. I love my 7-game series. I'm not ready for hockey to be over yet. And Friday night's going to be another incredible tilt.
I cannot wait for it. Now, you guys alluded to it, but we have to talk about the goaltending here, right? Coming into this series, the conversation was about, can Stuart Skinner backstep the Oilers to a cup? Can he hold up? Now, it's the Oilers. They're making us question Sergei Bobrovsky after back-to-back shaky games. Alan, what are we seeing from playoff Bob, who we thought maybe would rebound a lot better?
I'm still going to say that Bob's been playing well. When I look at the goals, I look at the goal that Hyman scored. It's a screen net front power play, and it's a ripper by the Bushbaum. The goal by McDavid, we saw Skinner let one of those in, and, you know, almost everyone in Edmonton went to Skinner's house and evicted him from, you know, the Edmonton city limits. That's a goal scorer's goal. McDavid knew what he was doing when he took that shot. There are little tiny openings the size of a puck. But I thought when the Oilers, you know, when they had Bobrovsky under siege, as I said in the pregame show, you have to have players on the paint. Here is an example. This goes off the knee of Zach Hyman. You know, Zach Hyman wasn't shooting the puck with a stick, but he gets out one off the knee. And then you look at McDavid's goal. That goal was not scored if you don't have a net front presence. So, you know, that's the difference in these games. No goaltender in the National Hockey League should be able to stop pucks in mass when you have a lot of traffic on your doorstep, because not only do you have the opposition player, you have your own player there. That's 2 players. So the goaltender's got to stand up. He elevates. He tries to find the puck. He drops, and he hopes that the puck hits him. And Skinner was having some more luck with that tonight because a lot of those pucks were hitting him through traffic. Tonight, they weren't hitting Bob necessarily. But I just thought, once again, he gives his team a chance. He gives his team hope. I still believe that he's a phenomenal goaltender. I just thought the Oilers had their luck and their bounces, everything go their way tonight. And I always believe the advantage on a breakaway, as Connor Brown had, goes to the shooter, not the goaltender, because the goaltender has to react. The shooter knows what he wants to do. And as long as the puck cooperates, he's going to be able to execute his move. And as long as he finishes and follows through within the netting, he's getting himself a goal. And so I'm going to say this wasn't on Bob. This was on his team, maybe being a little lax in the neutral zone in the first period. And he's going to have to come out and he's going to have to steal a game next game. And if not, we go back for an incredible Game 7. And I think it's going to be one of those nights where last goals wins. And it's going to be an overtime setting. So I want a Game 7. I'll just say that as a hockey fan and a guy that loves this game and loves to see what I saw tonight. I want more of this.
Yeah, I agree in that this wasn't on Bob. Obviously, you might want to save on the McDavid goal from the sharp angle that goes off the back skate, but I didn't see this as being a bad Bob game. But I did like the graphic that was shown earlier. Like Bob, later on in series, tends to become a little bit weaker. You can get to him, whereas Stu Skinner on the opposite side gets stronger as series go along. He's now 9-0 in games 4 through 7 in these playoffs. He's got a save percentage of more than .944. So Stu Skinner is a guy who only gets stronger. And I mentioned it in the pregame hit. You don't want this series to go back to Edmonton for Florida for a number of reasons, but also because Sergei Bobrovsky on the road in the Stanley Cup Finals, the last 2 Stanley Cup Finals, have not been very good. And so you're now talking about the seed of doubt in the Florida Panthers' mind, but also maybe Sergei Bobrovsky, where he's not the impenetrable force between the pipes as we were talking about through the first 3 games. So all the momentum seems to be at the Oilers' back right now, even if they survive this game. And goaltending is not necessarily the story that a lot of people thought it would be when you were looking at Bobrovsky versus Skinner on paper. And that's the second straight series in which that's been the case, because Jake Ottinger going up against Stu Skinner, people put the Stars firmly in the corner of goaltending, and it just didn't end up being the case. And now I feel like the conversation has to happen. Are we underrating Stu Skinner? Because he has proven to be a guy that is steady when he needs to be. And especially as the series goes along, when they need him to, really batten things down, he's been solid. And so there's a lot of reason to be confident in Stu Skinner and a lot of reason to be confident in this Edmonton Oilers team as they go back home for a Game 6.
And now with the Panthers, the confidence probably is wavering. So they've had 2 chances to win a Stanley Cup, and they failed twice. Now they'll have a third time, right, coming up on Friday. But, Alan, I'll go to you first. How do the Florida Panthers finish the job? Because right now it looks very hard to do so.
Well, I said earlier today that the Oilers had to score the first 2 goals of this game. I said it the last game as well. And if the Panthers want to go in and win in Game 6, they've got to find a way to get the first couple of goals, because that gives you a lot more confidence. It starts to open up the game from the opposition, where they're kind of they will be prone to mistakes from cheating the game offensively a little bit and not paying attention to their defensive details. So the biggest thing, they can go out next game, they can get back to chunking pucks at the net. They did a lot of great things tonight, having that hurry to get the puck, but they've got to make sure that they don't put themselves in foot races with guys like Connor Brown, Connor McDavid. Janmark showed exceptional speed at times tonight. They've got to make sure that puck's getting out of the zone. And when they get in, we saw it in the second and third period tonight, extended zone time on the cycles. I thought they deferred to the defensemen a few too many times. They should have been continuing to wrap the puck at the net. When they had the puck in the trapezoid, they dominated. So I'd have to say, get that puck in the trapezoid, work it behind the net, go from behind the net into the slot for shots with traffic. And that's how they get back in and take over the series and get Bob his 16th win and their 16th win and become Stanley Cup champs. They've got to have urgency to get the puck in net, less point shots, more shots by the forwards, and more players at the paint. Tonight, Stuart Skinner played exceptionally well. He was able to find the pucks through traffic. And I know that we saw earlier in the game, we saw some graphics where the slot shots were coming from the Panthers, but at the same time, there was no one in front of Stu Skinner. There were layers of Oilers blocking and boxing players out. And Skinner was able to see those pucks from the ones further from the point that Oilers defense were pushing. Particularly Ekholm did an incredible job of boxing out. So Skinner was just Skinner and the shooter, and he was able to get his body out, take away the angle, play very big, and stop that. So they need more forwards at the paint, and they've just got to make sure they can take away his vision, because you got to get the game-winning goal. No matter how great your goaltending is, you've got to find a way to get that game-winning goal.
Yeah, and if you're Florida, I think one of the things that you can build off of the last 30 minutes of this game is how good you were down low. And Alan talked about the extended zone time. They won a lot of battles down low, and I thought Matthew Tkachuk had very clearly his best game of this series, and probably his best game in a while, even going back to last series, not only on the stat sheet, but in the battles that he won down low and the opportunities that he helped create late in that game. And if you're talking about Game 6 in Edmonton, you're right in that they want to get on the board first, because then you take the crowd out of it, knowing sort of the nervous energy that will be in that building if the Oilers are trailing early on, especially knowing that the Panthers tend to be a strong team as the game carries on. They're one of the best third period teams in all of hockey. We saw that in this game. Unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. I also think they would be doing themselves quite a bit of favor by keeping the game to 5-on-5, because you're seeing the special teams advantage sort of bubbling up under the surface and now coming to the surface with Edmonton, both on the PK and the power play. I just think that Florida power play has been really, really bad in this series, and it's created a problem. And if you're the Panthers, try to keep it to 5-on-5, because you won the 5-on-5 battle in this game, and you were really good down low. And so those are the things that they can build off of heading into Game 6. But again, I think there is now certainly some uncertainty and some nervous energy now that your runway that you built with a 3-0 series lead is really, really shortening up here.
Pete Blackburn, Alan May delivering some high-level analysis and entertaining quality information as we are now headed to a Game 6. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. So here is a look at teams to overcome a 3-0 series deficit in the 4 major sports history. So in 2014, the Kings did it against the Sharks. That was in the first round. 2010, the Flyers in the conference semis. Against the Bruins, we remember Red Sox against the Yankees in the ALCS. And then 1975 and 1942, the Islanders and the Maple Leafs. The Maple Leafs is important, right? Because that is the only time the team has come back from a 3-0 deficit in NHL history to win the Stanley Cup Final. And right now, the Oilers 2 games away from getting it done.